Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Bobby Hams here with my review of Showtime's Homeland, the final season. On the first episode, it was one of the fastest last season recaps I've seen in a while. Carrie was captured by Russian agents. They didn't give her her pills. She went a little bit off the rails. A deal was made and Carrie was freed, but she was in real bad shape. Going on to the episode proper, talks between the Taliban and US reached an impasse when the Afghan Vice President, General Abdul Ghulam, went on television and said that they wouldn't agree to the brokered US deal and release the 1,000 Taliban prisoners in exchange for a ceasefire. Saul Berenson thought, well, Pakistan was definitely involved in the vice president's reversal. Meanwhile, under observation, Carrie is trying to get back into condition so she can hopefully be returned to active duty service, where she learns that she failed her polygraph. Deception indicated. Now, she's convinced she didn't lie about anything, but she can't account for all of her 7 months' time while in Russian custody. A lot of her memory is a blur after they stop giving her her medication, 30 days or so into her captivity. Her interviewer asks her if she gave away any information about assets while being interrogated by Russians. She confidently said that she would never ever do such a thing, but then the agent countered with, how can she be so sure if she can't recall the past 7 months of her life? Carrie can't explain it, but she has a short flashback of placing her head on someone's chest, pleading not to be left alone. The person's face isn't shown. Making our way back to Saul, he's making moves in an attempt to rescue the ceasefire deal by confronting the Pakistani agent Tasneem Qureshi, played by Nimrat Kaur. Saul goes back to the States to release Carrie from observation because she had a personal relationship with the Afghan vice president, acknowledging concerns from the interviewing agent, the doctor, and the psychiatrist, but Carrie still goes to Afghanistan. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, Max is there as a contractor who's needed to repair a listening device that's cleverly hidden under a fake rock near the Pakistani border. His purpose is to find out if Pakistan is indeed working against the US. Her first night in country, Carrie made a phone call to someone. The station chief has his tech guys record and trace the number and realized it was a signal call. Carrie leaves the base to visit the home of one of her old contacts without telling the station chief or anyone else. She finds out from his wife that he was killed 5 months ago while Carrie was in Russian custody, when her memory was unsure of what was real and what was delusion. Carrie was the only American he dealt with, according to the widow. Carrie has another flashback of begging someone not to leave her, but that person's face is still hidden to the audience. A meeting with the Afghan president was set for Carrie for the afternoon, but it was suddenly moved up to the morning. Only a few hours from the time Carrie returned to base, the station chief was furious with her for her actions. Carrie, in her regular blasé way, just kind of waved it off and kind of, I had to do what I had to do, and that was all there is to it. As Carrie is waiting to meet the vice president, Kosta Ronin, who continues to play Russian agent Yevgeny Gromov, calmly walked out of the Afghan vice president's office and kind of acknowledged Carrie with the a real swift and very brief, just like wink and a nod, but he didn't fully acknowledge her. It was very subtle, but she saw it. But then we see the one that she was begging this whole time not to leave her was indeed Yevgeny Gromov. And that's where the episode ended, with Carrie devastated that she was in such a desperate state that she looked to Gromov as her salvation. Kosta is short for Konstantin, and he also played a Russian agent in the FX series The Americans. He was fantastic in that also, even though that show took place in the 80s during the USSR and the Cold War with the United States. But back to this episode, I think it was a very great start to the final season in setting up the main storyline that will be explored. That being, was Carrie Matheson, this die-hard, almost fanatically patriotic CIA agent under intense and prolonged interrogation, did she unknowingly get turned by the Russian government to work against the interests of the US? I think it's a fascinating arc to end the series on, because the first season was about a US Marine who had been brainwashed by a foreign government when he and his fellow Marines were taken as prisoners of war. If the season is leading up to Carrie bringing down the CIA to mirror Brody trying to assassinate US Vice President William Walden, played by Jamie Sheridan, it would be an amazing thread to pull off. But on to episode 2. Now, the first episode didn't have any credits. It just started off with the flashback of what happened in last season. But the second episode did have some credits to it with the familiar, jazz music going on there. And it brought back Brody also. He's prominent in the credits there, maybe as a means of showing where the series began or where it's going in this final season. But we pick up with Carrie's first meeting with the Afghan vice president, and it doesn't go so well. His support of the U.S. peace deal will mean the U.S. will leave Afghanistan and the Taliban will return in full force, so he doesn't support it. Carrie has nothing to bargain with when trying to get him to change his stance, so they get nowhere. Frustrated, Carrie wants to take down Gromov, but is told by Saul that she can't touch him because her release was part of a deal that meant nothing that happened in Russia could be investigated. The listening device that Max was working on near the Pakistani border is functional and intercepting phone conversations, where he learns that Haqqani actually wants a peace deal to go through, but doesn't want to be seen as the one pushing for it. Saul suggests removing Pakistan as the middleman and freeing Haqqani's cousin from Guantanamo Bay as a bargaining chip, with the intent of having him deliver a personal letter to Haqqani. Meanwhile, Carrie finds a mysterious letter on her desk with a name on it, Samir. The name is a lead to a woman who is gathering evidence about the Afghan vice president's corruption. Qureshi visits her father and admits that Saul outmaneuvered her in getting Haqqani's relative freed from Guantanamo Bay. Father then says that she should go all out and do whatever is necessary because Pakistan must be the one to control the peace process, not the US. In the meantime, Carrie found a thumb drive in Samir's apartment and meets up with her. After a failed fake interview designed to keep Samir out of the apartment went south, and she was forcefully taken into custody, Carrie convinces Samir to help her bring down the vice president. Back in Pakistan, Saul waits at a hotel in Peshawar to see if Haqqani received the letter and if he will show up. With Samir's help, Carrie learns that the Afghan vice president was billing the United States $30 million a year for an army base and personnel that haven't existed for 18 years. You take that $30 million multiplied by 18 years, it's $540 million scam that the Afghan vice president was running. Using her newfound files on General Ghulam's bilking of the Afghan army, Carrie motivates him to publicly walk back his initial statement. Picking back up with Max, he's intercepting increased phone chatter from Pakistan that seems to be zeroing in on Saul's location in Peshawar. We then go back to Pakistan and see that Haqqani's convoy is listening to the vice president's reversal being broadcast on the radio, and Haqqani thinks that Saul has kept his word. Back to Saul's point of view, Saul goes out of the hotel to see Haqqani's convoy heading his way, while locals are slowly clearing the area. Saul deduces that the ISI, Pakistan's spy agency, is targeting Haqqani, but it's too late. One of Haqqani's trucks is hit with an RPG, and Saul is kidnapped. In a bar where the CIA agents are relaxing, Carrie runs into Gromov, or maybe he ran into her, and he tells her that it was he who gave her Samir's name. He left a letter on her desk, but Carrie doesn't know why, and Gromov seems to think that she does know why, but he doesn't tell her why, and then he leaves. Back to a secret compound somewhere, Saul is taken into a stronghold where Haqqani, without saying a word, greets him with the butt of a rifle to the face, and that's where the episode ends. I think this was an excellent follow-up to episode 1, but also to the assault on the US Embassy last season, because this episode proved without a doubt that the Pakistani intelligence agency, the ISI, was 100% working against the United States. The way the embassy attack was shown last season, I wasn't sure if the ISI was aware of what was going on, or if communications lines were cut, and that's why it took security forces so long to arrive. But after this, it's abundantly clear what role they're playing. This episode also highlighted the real-world quagmire the US placed itself in when it first decided to go to war in Afghanistan in October 2001 after the Afghans refused to hand over the Saudi-born leader of Al-Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, for masterminding the 9/11 attacks. And then the US illegally invaded Iraq to pursue Saddam Hussein, even though Iraq had nothing to do with the whole thing, and 15 of the 19 hijackers on 9/11 were Saudi Arabian citizens, but that's a whole other topic. The point is, both military missions in both countries had no exit strategy in place before there were US boots on the ground. Episode 2 of Homeland has done quite well in highlighting the consequences of that reckless approach almost 20 years ago. But that's all for now. We'll see what goes down in the next episode of Homeland. This is Bobby Hams, signing out.